I know this topic has become a cliché for some, but let us talk about waste management. This is the biggest concern for many local governments. I tried to find statistics, but I was not able to. How much money is spent on waste management on average? I was not able to find this information, but I believe it's a lot of money, isn't it? It depends on the municipality, doesn't it? Let us begin with who has the biggest concern. Who would like to start? Sigrid, do you have any problems you would like to address? Good afternoon. It is a pleasure to go first. Of course, there are a number of concerns. If we talk about waste, I would like to start by mentioning a main concern, which is the fact that we recycle too little household waste. This is a top concern for the state and something we all need to work on. Well, this goes back to the question of the egg and the chicken. Who should have which responsibilities? I as a consumer or the state? What it all costs? Let me ask Rein from Tallinn Waste Management Center. How are things from your point of view? I used to work as a state official for 20 years and I did not have any concerns then. When I did, I could always say that the municipality will take care of it. Now I can see that my point of view has changed. I have worked in municipality side for 3 months and I can see that we just have to do things. There is no way around it. But when I thought about what concerns to address today, it seemed to be an easy question at first. It's easy to think about problems, but the more I thought about it, the fewer problems I had. It is common to complain about the lack of money. I could say that we don't have enough funding, but then I wanted to buy containers and they told us, yes, go ahead, and there was funding. I wanted to build a new building and it was not a problem. I could buy a tractor when I needed to. And Kaupo said this morning that there was still 111 million euros to be distributed. Well, it seems that things are going well then. Right. How about you? Regarding waste management, what is your concern? What should be the role of local municipalities and how much should it be regulated? How much should the state fund it? I am happy to sort my waste, but sometimes I don't know whether it's useful.
Yes, welcome on my behalf as well. And I have been working for local municipalities during 15 years already. And I've been a mayor for 11 years. And we know this principle that the polluter pays. So if it would be expensive to pollute, the situation would be different. And also, local municipalities are nowadays ready to take bigger responsibilities, and we have had situations in bigger cities where there have been suspicions of corruption. But if we take a look at our neighboring countries, the focus is not on who takes away waste from the cities. But the main question is what happens to this waste? And application of the principle that the polluter pays is very important. And from the point of view of citizens, it's important to know what happens to the waste. And let's be honest, in Estonia, we just send it to combustion, and we don't put it to waste landfills, and we don't gather material that could be reused. So the picture is a rather negative one, but I would like to recommend to use the model that is based on local governments. And my colleague, previous speaker here, said that he had been working as a government official earlier. I think that it would be important to not say that it's the goal of Estonia as a country. We should say it's our goal, not a governmental goal. But I heard that also a tax was mentioned in this context. But this sounds like a whip for me. But what could be the carrot for the local government or also for citizens? So whips and carrots. Yes, Wright also pointed out that in 2014, Estonian local government policies, they were left without the trust of parliamentary politicians, and the decision was taken to not hand over any money to local governments. But it's not free to deal with waste. And nowadays the situation is that basically we pay extra in local governments for waste management. And we have to take several steps in order to reach a point where just from transportation of waste we would reach a situation of circular economy. And Finland serves as an example for us because the principle of cooperation of municipalities works really well there. Reina, what are your experiences? What have you seen as a person who on daily basis sees this waste? Have you seen any positive examples? Or where should we start from? Should we rather use carrots or whips for consumers? Sticks or carrots? Yes, it's true that I've seen the development of waste management in Estonia for 30 years, and I would not be that critical. I would like to bring a following example. 20 years ago, it cost 300 euros to create a landfill in Estonia. Now we can get 1 million euros for doing this. And we have never had as much money as we have now. But what makes me alarmed is that we can see that things are happening. There are containers here and there, and people are using them. But what is disturbing me is that the data, if we take a look at the data about how Estonia is doing, then decreasing the amount of waste in Estonia, we know that it's important and we have to do it. But numbers don't lie, and numbers go together with economic growth. And this is what creates alarm in me, because we have been talking about in kindergartens and in schools, etc., etc. And I'm otherwise a soft person. And I have been thinking about maybe introduce an legal act. When I was coming in the morning to Tartu, in the buses was said that it's banned to use alcohol and smoke cigarettes in the bus. But why didn't the bus driver tell me that it's also a ban on creating waste in the bus? I have to tell that in a free market economy, I would support the point of view that let it all develop freely. If we try to guide the behavior of consumers with supporting by financially, then we have seen what it leads to. We have been printing and printing and printing money during the latest years. But how to find balance? How, instead of over-regulating, find a balance? And if I read like UN and VEF documents, then who would like to have an ID, ecological ID? If you have been traveling too much by car, then you can't do it anymore this month, because this is where we are moving. Is it normal to have such kind of measurement of personal footprints? I think that this question of balance is really important here, because people should have more knowledge. If we today talk about waste, do we know how much waste we create ourselves? And then at some point, when I myself started to use the service of yellow waste bags, then I noticed how much waste I create myself. And the question is about noticing more and more that this waste includes that waste and includes third kind of waste. And everybody has to become aware about in which situation we are in this chain of creating waste. The first point is the producer. What kind of waste are they creating? Can this waste be reused? And first we have to tell to producers that you are not supposed to produce anything that creates so much waste. And what Wright also mentioned is that it should be much more expensive for producers to use this or that kind of packaging. And now the consumers, they also have to know how to sort their waste, where biodegradable waste should be placed, where paper, etc., etc. And it has to be also comfortable for people. And also thinking about procurements. Procurements should consider these aspects, including also transportation and management. So everybody should have certain requirements and obligations. And if somebody just leaves a site and does not fulfill the obligations, then somebody else has to do it. And the government should certainly not say that you're not supposed to buy any more ice cream because you have already created waste that is paper or ice creams. But this is how the situation is now. We are now sharing responsibility, but an average responsible unit. Well, today the situation is that the state creates regulations and then it goes to private entrepreneurs, and we think that free market will regulate it all. But what we see in reality is that the latest 15 years, it has all stayed in the same place, same position. So it's really good for somebody. But if local governments are the nearest point to the inhabitants of local governments, we should do something where the local inhabitants also feel some kind of gain in it. So there have been talks about building a big combustion station. But why big combustion enterprise? In Denmark, for example, they have built several small ones because the heat can be used locally. Of course, it's a much more expensive investment, but as an alternative, of course, we can use it for heating. And legal acts are obligatory for everybody. And it's very hard, complicated. And people say that I don't create any waste at all. Why should I pay for waste handling? And then we also compost biodegradable waste and food leftovers. In Tallinn, we use this for planting different plants in the center of the city, and this is also done in Tartu. Also, waste is gathered from restaurants, and it can be done locally. We don't need to have one huge big plants, but looking on the local government level, it would work. And this is not the stick, it's the carrot. Here in Tartu, for example, we could say that these flower beds are made out of biodegradable waste of inhabitants of Tartu. And the ones who are not sorting their waste, they should pay more for their household waste. And when talking about packages, there are some local governments that have created certain waste wheels where you can take and you pay for it when you buy it from the shop. And then it's also a convenience service if it's taken away from where you live. And the packages of producers, I think that producers should also be partners for the government. And everybody does not have the possibility of introducing this yellow bag service. It's only in the cities, not in rural areas.
Reigo, let me ask you another question. And perhaps Rein can also answer. What is the optimal solution? If we are too centralized or too dispersed, what is the number of people that we should serve? If I have a dirty package, I might waste 30 liters of water to clean this package because it's very dirty. What are these numbers? Is this confusing as a question? What are the thresholds we need to consider? Yes, we spoke about balance. It seems to me that finding a balance is self-sabotage. We want to increase recycling dramatically, and we need to recycle 0.5% more each year. But what if we stayed the way we are? If we are serious about reaching the goals that we have, then we need to change the balance. And we need to be stricter with municipalities and with people. We need to issue fines if there is no waste sorting. I cannot believe in balance as such at this point. When you ask where these limits are, then I would say we need to consider the environment more than a person's convenience. I'll pick a few more questions. This is a similar question. Who should solve the waste question? The end consumer by sorting waste better, so it is easier to recycle? Is it the consumer's responsibility or the producer's responsibility? Well, everything starts from the producer to make sure that recycling is possible. But the local government needs to have an initiator's role here. Otherwise, entrepreneurs will not go along. It is difficult for producers. Somebody has to monitor the changes, and the public sector needs to play a role here. In order to meet the goals, should they be made local municipality based? And if these are not fulfilled, should there be responsibility from the local government? Yes, there were several questions here. Indeed, right now the state has the responsibility, but there are so many different parts in this chain. So it is difficult to enforce liability in anyone except the state. It is not about who is punished if we don't fulfill the goals, but who helps to fulfill the goals. In the European Commission and in the World Bank, there are experts who have helped us analyze the waste sector and improve it and think of ways to improve it. Their recommendation was to give more possibility to make decisions to the local municipalities, and that these goals should also be made at the local government levels. There are several ways of doing this, and from the side of the ministry we will make suggestions in the near future. Since this is an important topic, there should be sufficient debate in the society. But there are different ways of doing it. Whether to pay a sum of money to a local municipality or to help them with specific measures. There are different ways of helping. Would you like to add anything? Estonian municipalities are not in such a bad state. We are being shown in dark colors. In fact, a lot of municipalities have already adopted these goals. Today we have 24 municipalities that are managed under their own NGO in charge of waste management. And others who are still in charge of procurements separately are also moving in the right direction and becoming more sustainable. It is clear that local municipalities are taking steps, but they also need to be trusted. In the past, there were 225 local municipalities, and it was difficult to know what was being done with waste. But now we have much fewer of them, and local municipalities are equal partners in this question. In Finland, there is a very good system in place, so we could use their example. And why would we be any different? I agree that the state level goals could be assigned to the lower levels. I also want to highlight that a lot of great things are being done in Estonia. I have seen so many interesting initiatives around Estonia, very good campaigns in one municipality, very good composting results in another. So municipalities should have more chances of learning from each other. This can inspire them, and maybe we don't need to focus on fines coming from the pockets of residents of local municipalities, but we could rather focus on highlighting the success. So saying which municipality has done well in one sector or another. This motivates the people, but also the environmental specialists who are often alone against the masses. If we recognize these people, this could increase the momentum. I would like to add that a carrot, in my belief, works better than the stick. We need to recognize, we need to praise, and I wouldn't underestimate the current municipalities either. There are still just 3 municipalities that have mixed household waste, but in current legislation, they are all doing very well. There are a lot of questions from the audience. Most of them are related to waste management. Waste sorting and recycling is largely the responsibility of local municipalities. What can we do if the local municipalities are not interested in sustainable solutions, and it is the responsibility of the local council? Reigo, please. Well, we have talked about waste management, but we are actually at a circular economy conference. There are some specific steps that should be taken in Estonia in order to move towards circular economy. One of these is the combustion plant that was mentioned 20 years ago. When it was first mentioned, it was a big step. It allowed reducing the amount of waste and producing energy from it. But today, this is something that is hindering Estonia's waste management and transfer to circular economy. Is the incineration, well, the incineration of household waste is the cheapest solution. Another thing that should be applied more widely in Estonia is green procurements. There should be a market for what used to be treated as waste. I'm talking about compost and mining waste here. There is no market for these in Estonia currently, but green procurements could point us in this direction. We could make it compulsory to use the mining waste and compost, but how exactly the decision is made by each local council, we cannot define. Cities and municipalities have their own right to decide, and if the decisions are not favorable, we need to focus on training instead. Even if a municipality collects biodegradable waste, how could we direct it in the right places? How could we use it? This is a good question. Tallinn Waste Management Center produces its own compost, in fact, and the tractor processes it. In Estonia, if you want to sell compost, you need to have a certificate which is used to assess the quality of the process, but also the compost itself. How many weeds are there and how many pollutants. If this certificate is issued, it is no longer waste. This autumn we prepared our compost and we got the certificate. We wondered if anyone would buy it, but we actually ran out of it in no time. This shows that waste management specialists perhaps need to learn more about sales and marketing. If you are able to market things, a lot of problems will be solved. How long was this process of getting the certificate and making the compost itself? Well, making the compost, it depends on the conditions that you have. We have our own simple compost machine. Then making compost takes about a year, but a reactor compost machine prepares compost in a couple of weeks. It is we have two companies that produce certified on compost, and this means not just anyone can start preparing compost at municipality level. You need to have permits for that. But Reigo has talked about waste management and waste. If we talk more widely about Estonia, we have a question of mining permits in Harju and Lääne County. This is in relation to building the Rail Baltic. But in the northeast of Estonia, we have an excess of mining waste. So we need to find solutions that for using the waste that has already been produced in the northeast of Estonia. This could be used in road building and in railway building. We already have the materials, so there is no need to create more plants. So one more comment and then we will switch to a different topic.
Yes, just very quickly, I would like to add that in fact the Act of State Procurements also enables green procurements. and very often the winners of procurements are the ones who offer the cheapest prices. And very often the costs of logistics also make a big difference, because the waste you are talking about, it's situated in eastern part of Estonia, and transport makes very long distances. But very often, naturally, people trying to find support from the legal act, but legal acts also enable a much wider approach, and the main barrier today is money, finances. I would also like to ask that recently I learned that from libraries you can also borrow lawn mowers or other work instruments. Basically, you can borrow from there whatever in the future. Yes, it's true. In Estonian libraries, very many interesting activities are carried out. In Tartu, for example, we have also a maker lab with a center of youth work. There all the tools are available. If a chair is broken at home, you just go there and pay some euros and you can fix it. So the cross-use of tools starts from real estate development. And there is a developer who would like to create a new real estate development in Kambja with tools that can be used collectively. And whatever it is, like a lawnmower or saw or other tools, they can be used collectively. And it starts also with you personally, because my neighbor, for example, has a trimmer that works on gasoline, and mine works on batteries. And do we have a need for double tools? And in fact, we managed to agree that that's not a necessity. So sharing a car with somebody, that is something we already know for a long time. And also like purchasing things, whether you should buy a bicycle for your kid, a new one, or a bicycle that already has been in use. And whatever other items we talk about. And somehow in Estonian mentality, there are some leftovers from Soviet era, that the more things we own, the better it is. But at the same time, when I think about my father, he has owned his tools for 50 years, and sometimes I borrow also tools from him. And in a circular economy, we try to solve all these problems with this approach of circular economy. But until the 70s and the baby boomers generation, the producers were producing tools that really could last throughout their lives. But then the demographic processes changed, and producers understood that, okay, there are not that many people born any longer. And then subscription-based model were introduced. But I can see that there is a conflict here, because while consumers might be interested, the producers are not. In other words, we live too well because we do have lots of money to buy many cheap things, but product development has changed, and today we have too much money to buy all of this stuff because your father owns all his tools that he has been using all the 50 years, and you go there and you borrow these tools. And at the same time, we say that borrowing money from a bank for 30 years is normal for purchasing a house. Earlier, you could save money for a shorter period of time and purchase your house as a result of that. Very nice. And coming back now to circular economy, and from the point of view of municipalities, these processes are not paying back by themselves, these activities. And let's say that we have waste management stations, and we take our things there. We should have such kind of houses there, and in these houses we should have also workshops with tools. And while earlier you should just have thrown away some kind of chairs or whatever that was broken. But instead, in these waste management stations, people should come and fix their items. Normally, the reason why it has not happened until now is that people either don't own the tools and they don't know how to fix pieces of furniture or whatever it is. So there should be also people there who can teach them how to do it. And many people living in cities, they have said that I'd like to do something manually myself. And there are examples in the countryside where people come and they pay for harvesting the hay. And how could we support people to fix things in workshops? Yes, here in Tartu since 2007 there was a circular economy center, and we had people who fixed machinery and other items. And if it was ready to use again, then it was sold further. Is there anybody from Tartu here? So here in Tartu, as well as in Tallinn, in Kalamara area, there are such workshops, and it's should be possible to fix and repair. But if we talk about furniture from IKEA, there it might be more complicated, because if we talk about materials of a furniture industry, then the materials can be MTF or whatever it is. And I would also like to send my greetings to cobblers. And now let's move forward and talk about what can be done about design of services on the level of local municipalities? What could be the solutions?
This takes us back to the keyword green procurements. This is something that should be implemented much wider. I've heard the words cheap repeating. Well, this is about the time frame. As a country, we are about to reach a deadline where we must recycle and reuse an increasing number of a percentage of our waste, and we are very far from the 55%. This could cost us 100 million euros. There is no cheap solution. It is not a cheap solution not to favor sorting waste by type. Not reusing mining waste is also not a simple solution. It is something that we need to think about in the context of time. If we run out of this waste, we need to bring it in from Finland. I would like to share a couple of keywords in response to this question. Research and development and material design. These are what we need to talk about in order to find alternative materials that are safe for the environment and safe for people as well. Another keyword I want to share is fair price. We don't pay a fair price for many things today when we think about the environmental impact that they have. Well, this was a bit of a reality check. But regarding green procurements, I wonder if companies cannot operate without grants and bursaries anymore. No, we are not talking about Social Democrats' election platform here. No, it is about deciding that we will use greener materials. For example, do we need to use wood as a sound barrier, or can we use recycled plastic? We can use wood elsewhere. It might be a bit more expensive to use this plastic, but if it doesn't have to be A class plastic, but it could be B or C type because it is recycled plastic, this could be a solution. But for that, we need the contribution of research and development specialists. So in Estonia, Vinapol is the only company in the world that is using lignin for replacing bitumen in asphalt. This is private company that is using an innovative solution and that understands that natural resources are running out. But it is difficult here for the state and for the local government to set certain limits. The next big thing that we will have is the microplast directive from the side of the EU. This is a major regulation to be entered into force that will affect Estonia's chemistry companies. So, for example, we have football pitches which are covered with plastic made from recycled tires, but it will not be suitable in some years' time because it contains a lot of microplast. So we need to find alternatives for it. This seems to be an endless process in a way. There are arguments for and against. Would you like to add a comment? I think the state doesn't have to start designing packages themselves, but there was a very good remark that circular economy is not so simple. Companies often say to the state not to interfere, but what came out from the presentation from Norway was that asphalt was put down and the city smelled. So, okay, that was from Finland, sorry, not from Norway. So it's important to understand what is in each waste and how it behaves in different conditions. So the state is sometimes careful about making such decisions. This can hold companies back at times, but it's important for the nature's well-being. Another very important topic is wastewater sediments, which we have a lot, and it comes from wastewater treatment plants, and it is sometimes used on fields, but it has a very high content of drugs. The wastewater contains a lot of these. It may seem like a good idea to use this, but when you start to measure, it is quite detrimental for the groundwater. So we cannot simply do things without thinking. This is similar to what was being done back during the Soviet Union. To conclude, I would like to ask a simple question. Yes, all the questions will be answered, but to finish, I would like to ask a personal question. When we talk about circular economy and sustainability, what would be your habit, your personal habit that you should change? Let us leave aside the level of the municipality or the state. What in your life would you like to change? It doesn't have to be about waste management. It could be something else like fixing things or wearing socks with holes in them or something else. Next year's conference, we will all take our shoes off. Who would like to start?
My son, who is 10 years old, he made me fix his socks. And until now, I haven't been doing it. But me personally, I think that I should use more public transport. And I don't have at the moment comfortable ways of using public transport for moving from home to work. It requires planning. So this is probably something that I should do more of. Reigo or right? Well, as the microphone was put into my hand, I think that I should also recognize that maybe I should use more public transport. I've been using Bolt scooters, but I would once again like to remind that this is a conference of circular economy, and we talk about how local municipalities can start supporting the government more. And it's like in an Estonian myth from the island of Saaremaa, like Suur Tõll. He also wanted, when he wanted some help, there were local inhabitants who came to help him. Rigo, I think that I should maybe fly less. This is most probably the biggest CO2 footprint that I leave on Earth, and maybe also food waste. Sometimes when there are periods when we are very busy, then we don't use up all of the food. And now we have introduced days when we eat up what the leftovers, so to say. Everybody has a different menu. But thinking about CO2 footprint, I should fly less. There are not many things that I can do well, but one of them is minimalism and also minimal consuming. But despite that, while I was earlier talking about traveling to Tartu this morning by bus, and sometimes I buy coffee from restaurants, and it's served in this one-time use coffee cups, and I should think more where I throw it away. But now we have come to the end of the seminar. I would like to hand over also some small presents, and I have a clear system for which presents are meant to who, and it's not socks in these boxes of presents.